Good morning. Good morning. How you doing? Just shut the door. Keep the dog out. Hope you're well. Let's go live on Facebook as well. I have to wait till it gets over there. It's over there. Going live on Facebook. Facebook will join us very shortly. There we are. All good. How are you doing? Friday, most important day of the week. Do you know what? It only seems like last Friday was. It only feels like it was 7 days ago. It's remarkable how that kind of happens, isn't it? It only feels like I was sat here telling you that this Friday is the most important day of next week. It feels like I was just saying that. I keep wanting to say a week ago for comic effect, but it just feels like no time at all since I was saying that. So good morning to you all. I think Pete just said morning there. I've not figured out yet using this Veed live thing. I've not figured out yet how when the messages appear. It's quite obvious in YouTube and the like when they appear, but I'm not sure here whether that's appeared this morning. It might have. Maybe a good time for Pete this. Anyway, good to see you all. Good to see you all. And the weekend is upon us. I think I did talk last week about what to do with your weekend, didn't I? Did I have a bit of a chat about that? But in a more kind of narrow kind of focus, I thought today, mainly because in The Guardian this morning, let's have a look. Let's get this up on the phone. In The Guardian this morning, it asked the question, good article called The Stress Secret, 12 Ways to Meditate Without Actually Meditating. I thought that's interesting. And I was reading them all, and I'm going to tell you some of them. And I thought, well, they're so easy to do, and they're just restful activities. And that gets you kind of thinking, doesn't it? Because there's lots of kind of, not hang-ups about meditation, but people get kind of freaked out a bit when I say maybe you should meditate or that kind of thing. They get a bit kind of, what is that? How do I do that? And actually, meditation is just kind of taking your focus away from, the external world, really. Just taking your focus away from whatever's aggravating you. And that's rest as well, isn't it? That's rest. That's all rest is. And I remember reading an article a good while back stating that there were 7 types of rest. And then didn't list 7, but it listed 7 ideas and concepts. And they touch on some of the things in The Guardian this morning. So remember, and I said this last week on Friday, that we're resting and recovering for next week, not from this week. I think that's important. It's an important mindset shift for me that I'm recovering and resting and preparing for next week, not from the previous week. And these types of rest are interesting, and I think they're really important, and they touch on the different aspects of our humanity, our human nature, our human being, our human form. And the first one is physical rest. Quite obviously, I suppose, that's the first thing we think of, don't we? When we think about rest, we think about being inactive. And that's fine, because some restful activities are inactive. You watch a bit of telly, or, you sit and have a chat with friends, or you sit and have a coffee with friends, or you do whatever. So, yeah, some of these things are inactive. But physical rest can be passive like that, or can be active, so going for a walk is really good. Yoga is restful, all of these things. So there are things like that. Exercise for many, and technically for us all, but if you're not an exerciser, you maybe don't feel that. Lots of people exercise, don't they? And they feel it's the worst thing in the world they could be doing. It's really good for us. It's really restful because of the way it informs our stress response, that actually elevated breathing and elevated heart rate are not things to be scared of. And that restful feeling, that euphoric feeling, that runner's high after exercise, any sort of exercise, not just running, is really important. So physical rest is really useful, really important, and really good for us, because there is a physical preparedness required even for mental work. So when we're working with our brains, how physically well we are does have an impact. Our brains require good oxygenation, good blood flow, good nutrition, so that we can repair our brains effectively. So all those things sit in that physical realm. So physical rest is really important, passive or active. And then the second type of rest, which again leads to meditation. See, all roads lead to meditation. The second type of rest is mental rest, and I think sometimes when I'm really busy, I really enjoy listening to an audiobook while I'm walking the dog. I really enjoy doing that kind of thing. I find it restful, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I find it quite aggravating, and sometimes I just need to not be being fed with anything. If that makes sense. So sometimes this morning I didn't. I've got 2 sessions to deliver this morning online. So that's I would say that's a heavy load, particularly, but it'll take its toll. You're on the ball. One of them's an hour and a half. One of them's an hour. So I need all of my mental faculties available to me. So I've had some physical exercise. I've slept reasonably well. And I decided not to bombard my mind with the audiobook I'm listening to. I decided to let my mind rest and think of nothing. So mental rest is really important, to take it not thinking of anything. And again, meditation is a good thing there. Or maybe just thinking of one thing, just not ruminating. I always worry when I say that people think it's kind of ruminating. It's not ruminating on something. It's just thinking of something. To the exclusion of everything else, being mindful about some aspect. And then the third type of rest is sensory rest. I think one of the challenges of modern life, one of the problems that we face, I think, is sensory overload. We are, and when I say we, I include me always, we are watching things all the time. We're sometimes watching couple of things. Sometimes I'm looking at my phone and I'm looking at the telly, kind of at the same time, even though I'm not, And I think the world is a noisy place. And I think there's something about taking yourself away to a quiet space. I really like being in my office. I'm very lucky, very lucky. I like the little hubbub background noise of the road. It just gives a bit of what we probably call brown noise in the background. I quite like that, but there aren't any peaks and troughs. It's just a constant murmur in the background. So I think we need to be quiet more than we probably are and get that sensory rest, visual or hearing, that kind of thing, really important. And these last 3 that they came up with in their 7, I think all tie together. They mentioned emotional rest, which means being free to express how you're feeling. Now, expressing how you're feeling to someone is helpful. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's really helpful, again, in those quiet spaces, to sit and reflect and to get those emotions out. And a great way to get those emotions out is to get them down on paper. Write down how you're feeling, diary how you're feeling, journal how you're feeling. And I think when it comes to emotional rest, we need to think about the people in our lives, or the situations or the environments in our lives that create a rest deficit. Because there are some things that replenish us, and there are some things that drain us. Yeah. And I think it's important to understand the difference, acknowledge the difference, and know when we've had enough of the things that drain us, and go back to the things that nurture us, feed us, promote this emotional stillness, emotional calm. And that links to, they mentioned spiritual rest, and I do understand that. I think we're all spiritual beings. Again, not religion, but necessarily, at least for some people. But spirituality is some sort of kind of, what is spirituality? Some sort of, I suppose, a deep sense of belonging, I suppose, acceptance, purpose, all of those kind of things, I think, is spirituality. What is my purpose? What do I belong to? What are my values? I think that's, for me, where spirit lies. And we need connecting with those things, groups of people that have the same values, feeling a sense of belonging, feeling a sense of acceptance, a sense of purpose, is actually restful. It actually, in the sense that it enhances kind of who we are, you know. And lots of those things, as I read this article in The Guardian this morning, lots of those things that they suggest are forms of meditation, or, you know, lend themselves to meditation, I suppose. Meditating without actually meditating. Walking, absolutely, 100%. I find walking the dog on a morning a hugely meditative process. When I'm not listening to an audiobook, and sometimes I need the meditative process and not the audiobook. Yeah. Being awed by nature, well, we know that. We know by looking out, being outside and looking out and looking up and looking around, it stimulates our peripheral vision. We know that. We've heard me say that before. And our peripheral vision stimulated creates a sense of calm. Drawing, they suggest. Just getting into, well, and again, it's getting into that state of flow, isn't it, where you are doing something to the exclusion of everything else. They suggest housework. See what you think of it. But you know what I mean? Taking your time with it. I enjoy that. If I've got time, I enjoy doing housework and taking my time with it. Trying new things is one of them. Yeah, that's good. That's stimulating. Restful, but stimulating. Staring out of the window. Yeah, I take a moment from time to time and just gaze out. Very good. Writing. Meditative process. And they suggest working, focusing on things to the exclusion of others can be restful. And I probably agree with that, you know, particularly if you have aspects of your job that you really love doing. You actually can come out of them feeling quite rested. I get that. I don't think it's as good as all the other things, but I get why they're mentioning that. And then they talk about singing, they talk about doing Lego, they talk about just absorbing yourself in a movie, pottery, all sorts of things in there that you can do. Hobbies, I suppose, are restful, aren't they, no matter what they are. So there you go. Physical rest, mental rest, sensory rest, being on your own, creative rest. Some of them things we've just been talking about there, haven't we? Absorbing yourself in a creative process can be quite restful. I find it quite stressful when I draw something and it looks nothing like the thing I was meaning to draw. But when I've been in the moment, it's been all right. And then that emotional or spiritual rest, whatever you want to call it. So think about that over the weekend. Think about how you weave in those different types of rest into different aspects of what you do. But overall, have a good Friday. Get prepared for next week, and have a good weekend. And we'll see you on Monday. Take care.